Shalom, all praises unto Yahweh Hashem Shai. Double honors to the apostles of GMS, and honors to you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. This is going to be a video based on the title that you see before you, America 1956 versus 2016. So going back, what's that, 50 years? If my math is correct, 60 years, all right? So, 40 years gets you to 2006, so 50 years, right? Right, and I'm just gonna read it and reference some of the material that it says and reference it against some of the stuff that's gone, that I've read in the past, quote some scriptures, okay, and pretty much, it's gonna be a relatively short video, okay. So it says there once was there was once a time in this country, which is talking about America, when you could work 40 hours a week and your spouse didn't even have to work, and you retired at 60 with a pension. Okay, so that's going back onto the heyday as spoken about within America, within the book of Proverbs, not Proverbs, Obadiah, the first chapter, and I think it's around about the third verse. Okay, the pride of thine heart has deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, right? And it says, whose habitation is high, and it also goes on to say, when thou shalt when thou shalt put thy nest amongst the stars, thence will I bring thee down. Okay, so around about that time, going back 50 odd years ago, that's when they were doing their so-called space programs and so-called space explorations. Okay, of which some of those were staged, as we know, but the Lord had it to where He allowed him to have them satellites and so on and so forth, and they were out there at the same time that he really started to decline. Right, going to show you that all things go back onto the prophecy and the word of Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right, so it says, today 40 hours a week is barely enough to pay rent, utilities, with dual incomes. This is the reality for 45 million Americans. Okay, so for 45 million Americans, right, living in a household where there's two incomes at 40 hours a week, and they're barely being able to pay rent, utilities, right, and there's two sources of income, which goes to show you that this is the end of this place, okay. And a lot of people are beginning to notice that, and ultimately what that may lead to is those race riots, because when things become difficult, all right, any divisions within society become more apparent, okay. So when they're rationing food, or when you got it to where martial law is implemented by whatever chaos they're gonna have it, whether the chaos begins by way of the riots, the people are gonna be rioting because they're not getting paid enough or whatever, okay, or the taxes go up or whatever. Those so-called blurred lines and people that are so-called in the gray area when it comes to racism and so on and so forth, that's going to become more apparent. And guess what? That ties in also with the scriptures in the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, where it talks about a man should go into his neighbor's house because of a lack of bread. Okay, so you're going to be robbing the person next door, because guess what? You are living in this when they know as metropolis, where all of these different individuals from different ethnic backgrounds are mingled in together. And it's okay today, you can get in your car, drive to work, drive back home, and whoever's next door, whether it be an Elamite, which is an Indian, or a Moabite, which is a Japanese, which is a Chinese, okay, whoever's next door, you ain't got no differences about them. But guess what? When you can't go to work, when you haven't got access to food and so on and so forth, and this guy done been stockpiling food for this, that, and the third, or you've seen the groceries that he had last week, you're gonna have a certain feeling about that, and you're gonna remember that really the Most High did separate the nations. People gonna go back into their own houses. I believe the book of Isaiah, the 13th chapter, briefly touches on that. How a man's gonna go back to his own land. You're gonna go back to your own people, man. Because those bloodlines of everybody coming together, man, that's gonna become, the Most High is gonna return it back to, he's gonna separate these different people, man. Okay, for the lack of food, for the lack of bread, and you're seeing the precipice of that. You're seeing the beginning of that by way of a lot of people working a hell of a lot of hours. It's 8 hours when you combine it with two individuals, man, and you're not paying enough rent. How long are you gonna be living like that? Because it can only get worse. All right, you can't, you ain't gonna work from the time you was 18 to the time you was 60, you're not just gonna be living and you're just barely paying rent. It's either gonna get better or it's gonna get worse. All right, and the financial forecast, everybody knows that it's gonna get worse, man. All right, so it says here, is America better? Is America a better place today than it was back in 1956? It says, of course, many Americans living right now couldn't even imagine a world without cell phones, all right, Facebook or cable televisions, of which all of these instruments, although they really really the only people that use these different instruments, the cell phone, not Facebook, all right, but the television, because you got the news channels and so on and so forth on there, right, the internet, the web, really the only people that really utilize those facilities for anything positive is the men at GMS. Everybody else is, really everybody else, the elites, are using these means to dumbing down the people, man. To dumbing down the vast majority of the population of the earth, man. They use those as a means of pushing out their, to broadly cast their witchcraft, okay? But then the scripture does say there's no enchantment against Israel, okay? So if you're with Yahweh Shem Yahushua, ain't nothing gonna come up against you, man. You're gonna be dead focused about this truth, and that's what's gonna be. The scripture talks about how the just shall live by faith. It says, but was life really so bad then? It says 60 years ago, his family could actually spend time on their front porches and people would actually have dinner with their neighbors. It says 60 years ago, cars were still cars, football was still football, and it still meant something to be an American, all right? And it says in our country today, it is considered odd to greet someone as they're walking down the street, and you've seen a lot of that, man. And that's the spirit of the Lord, that spirit of separation going into them. But also that is because people are in this darkness. They're in this darkness. The book of Isaiah talks about how Esau was going to push forth his darkness upon the earth, man. I believe the word used is gross darkness upon the people. Okay, but see, the men of the Lord are going to be awake. They're going to be in tune. They're going to be alive, man. That's not the scripture say. He's going to make us out of our bellies flowing as rivers of living water. Okay, so it goes on to say, right, and if someone tries to be helpful, is usually because they want something from you. But things were very different in the middle of the last century. It says men aspired to be gentlemen and women aspired to be ladies. All right, and now they want what they're doing now. They want to be slacks, man. They want to be hoes, man. Okay, all right. There's an old saying how that the teachers are dressing like the kids and the kids are dressing like the teachers, or something to that effect, meaning to say, the teachers are dressing inappropriately, right, in terms of they're showing too much, or they're wearing clothes that don't fit them properly, or something like that, and the kids are in the same fashion being overly sexualized, all right, because that's the thing in this society, man, all right, in that they want to dress like adults, man. So you got things completely decimated, man, completely destroyed. But who you can blame for that? You can blame Esau. Okay, so it says men aspire to be gentlemen and and women aspire to be ladies, and nobody had ever heard of bling, right, sexting or twerking, right? And all of those things that you're seeing here, this statement here, that's a sign of America getting ready to be destroyed, man. It says, of course, life was far from perfect, but people actually had standards, all right, and they tried to live up to them. And what's the main standard that you see being desecrated in front of the vast majority of the people? The scriptures, man. And how that if you're into the scriptures, pretty much you're a terrorist, which is like the worst thing if you're an American. If a guy calls you a terrorist, in America, that's a big thing, man. That's a great accusation. All right, but now when you're getting into the scriptures and you're deemed as a religious extremist, which is the same or under the same banner as being a terrorist, man. So that's that's an example of those so-called standards, all right. Those so-called standards being demised, man. Okay, but it's all in the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. He set it up. You had you had your run, all right. But this is you're coming to the end of your run, all right. Now you're gonna have it to where the men of the Lord is gonna be set up, okay, by way of the Lord pushing out this truth. And then once the 144,000 is sealed, guess what, man? America's done, and you're gonna have the establishing of the 12 tribes of Israel, the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, man. Okay, it says, so how did this all go wrong? See, I'm not gonna get into all of that. Pretty much for me, you know, for the purposes of this video, I was just exemplifying um what's really going on out there. Now, I'll quickly go through some of these pointers, but really I'm not gonna go too heavy into all that you're seeing. All right, but pretty much, what they're gonna get into is, you got Esau pretty much pushing his forth his satanic agenda. All right, and in so doing, people are becoming more wicked, man. But see, we only care about the 12 tribes of Israel. We only care about the elect. All right, and if you're seeing this and you agree with this, and it's highly likely that you're gonna be of the elect, man. Okay, so let me read. I'm gonna nitpick through some of this and say, so how did it all go wrong? Could it be possible that America peaked back then, and we have seen the decline ever since? So, and that's correct, because that's pursuant to the book of Obadiah. It says, before you answer, I want you to share. I want to share a list of comparisons between life in America in 1956 and 2016. It says, uh, uh, 56, John Wayne, Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe were the biggest stars in entertainment. It says in 2016, our young people look to be stars like Miley Cyrus, who has no talent, Justin Bieber, who has no talent, and Lady Gaga, who has no talent. Okay, now John Wayne, great entertainer, right? Great musician. Elvis Presley, musician, guitarist, whatever, right? I don't know too much about this Monroe woman, all right, but really she was likened onto, she really, if I remember correctly, she was the beginning of these individuals like Miley Cyrus and so on and so forth. So what they're going to show you there, man, you're actually you're the precipice of your destruction, man, because look how bad it's done got for you, man. Okay, all right, it says in 56, we were watching I Love Lucy and the end of Slavian show on television, right? And this is in 2016. Major television networks are offering a trashy shows of mistresses and and Lucifers. Okay, all right. Let me nitpick another one. Okay, it says 2016, no, 56. Introducing solids to a baby's diet may have meant shoving a pizza down the throat, and it says we have attachment parenting, which advocates treating children like babies almost until they reach puberty, man. Okay, and that's why you got a lot of these scoffers, man. They got that pre-basing mentality, because really they've been mothered too much, man. They never had no fathers around them, all right, to show them the way forward, man, to set them up so that their mind's gonna be right, man. That's why they're persistently scoffing on the comment board, because they weren't raised up right. But see, the Most High has raised up his men to be, and the scripture says that, man, to be the fathers for the fatherless, man. Because hey, it's part of the curses that you're gonna be fatherless. So the Most High set up his men to fulfill and complete that voidness. Okay, let me go down a little bit more. Okay. 56, and I mentioned this in the above. It says one income could support an entire middle class family, man. Okay, let me read that again. It says one income could support an entire middle class family, right? And it says 2016, approximately 1/3 of all Americans don't make enough, right? 1/3 of Americans don't make enough even to cover basics, even though both parents have entered the workforce in most households. Okay, so you're getting into into a messed up situation right now, man. Okay, let's see what they're gonna say about this. And it says, for those that don't know, this is an image of the Hindu goddess and the destruction known as Kali, and this is the next month. A reproduction of the 48-foot tall arch stood in the temple of Baal, of which the brothers did a video on that. In Syria, is going to be up, right, in Times Square. All right, it says, so now you have seen what I have to share. What do you think? Okay, so you got this satanic vibration going forth, and that and you're seeing what America declining, man. So what's that letting you know, man? Okay, that you're at the end of you're at the end of your rule. You see these elites are getting desperate, and that's why they're going through desperate measures. Because there was a time when really Esau was, Esau's elites were behind closed doors. Now they're coming full flag ship with it. All right, because you're seeing the downfall of America. But see, the scripture talks about stand now with their enchantments. All right, you know, pretty much alluding to the fact that if those enchantments would work, now they will work. But see, it ain't gonna work because this is you've been predestined to be destroyed in this time. Okay, so pretty much with that, I'm gonna say, oh praise unto Yahweh, Hashem Yahushai, double honors to the apostles of GMS. All right, honestly, brothers, that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.